Welcome everyone to It Tastes Different Gaming Podcast with four different flavors coming from four different gamers. I am your host Shane Eisterhold, and I'd like to welcome my co-host Nick Irwin, Patrick Smith, and Russell Rowe.
Hey, Patrick, where can they find us?
Well, the first place you should check out is our website at ittastes.different.com. This is the place where you can subscribe to all of our streams and connect to all of our social media sites. You can also find us on Facebook at It Tastes Different. We're also on Instagram at It Tastes Different PC. And then last but not least is Twitter, where you can find us at It Tastes Diff.
What's for dessert? We stand in the aisle trying to choose between Hostess and Little Debbie. Who will win the fight? Tonight we're going to discuss PC versus console. What is everybody's opinion? Tonight, let's start off with our primary PC guys here. Let's start with Russell. Russell, what do you feel about PC and console?
Well, it's slightly ironic that you say that I'm a primary PC guy because really out of the three of us, I think I'm in a transition. I'm a caterpillar blooming into a beautiful butterfly. I don't know. What else do I say about that? I was a huge PC gamer when I first started gaming. Massive. I mean, all I did was PC game initially. Of course, as a child, I had Nintendo and all that stuff. But as I became an adult, and computers became machines of playing these games, I immediately went PC. I mean, some of the early games like Dungeon Siege and Half-Life and all that just hooked me into PC gaming. And so for a solid, I don't know, I want to say a solid 15 to 20 years, I was very, very much a PC gamer. Me and Patrick, there were times where, we're on the phone and I'm trying to duct tape fans to computers just to get another leg out of them and stuff like that. So, but the thing about it is as I've gotten older, and the consoles have seemingly, I don't know, caught up is the right word. I don't think that that's the right word because I think I'm going to be probably middle of the line as much as anybody actually in this whole group, because there are games that play much better and are much more fun on the PC than the console, but the console is catching up with some of those things. Some of those games are starting to become playable. One thing I know, we'll probably get into a conversation about this, but I'll throw it out there so that Patrick can kind of think about this a minute. A good game that I go for an example is Diablo 3. Diablo 3 for me, I actually enjoyed it a little bit more on the console than the PC, but that's kind of a example for me of like how the console is starting to catch up, I think, with some playability with the PC. That there is my biggest example of how I'm kind of turning a little bit more towards a console. I don't know if it's ease or if it's the fact that I'm not having to upgrade my computer every 2 to 3 years to really compete with or keep up with the ever-changing graphic requirements of PC gaming. But for the most part, I've kind of, like I said, I've blossomed into this console primary player where I still come back to the PC for specific genre games. Strategy games, definitely. Those real-time strategy games are definitely something I come and I play on the PC. But I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Patrick, since I kind of threw his name out there a little bit, and let him continue on with what we're talking about.
Well, what can I say? Jesus loves all the little children. I love all consoles and computers. I can't understand the huge debate or fight amongst the groups, to be perfectly honest, because I'm in the boat where, in my opinion, some games play better on PC than they do on console, and vice versa. Some games just play better with a controller in my hand. And and there's plenty of examples of both of those, but I will be in a complete disagreements with Russ on that, because on his Diablo choice, because Diablo plays better on the PC. For me, I don't like how they've mapped all those buttons on the controller. I just can't get used to it. There's too many buttons to map into 4 buttons and some triggers and some thumb things. So I just prefer my Diablo on the PC. But there are plenty of games that are better on a console. And I'm a little bit opposite of some people too, because I prefer I'm getting to the point to where I prefer my FPS games on the console because of the controller. And I used to love them on the PC because the mouse and keyboard just seemed like the perfect combination of using your crosshair as your pointer, and then having your buttons mapped to like space, or your fire buttons or whatever, your triggers on your mouse. But I'm getting to where I'm probably playing a little bit more console games these days than I am PC now. I mean, I'm always been a fan of MMOs belong on the PC because I don't know how you can map all those buttons to the console, but there's a few trying. I love my grand strategy games. Those are 100% PC games for me. I cannot play them on console. I've tried to play like Halo Wars on there, and I'm like, nope, give me my mouse and keyboard. Get this controller out of here. I play every console that's in the current generation. I mean, I have a Switch, I have a PlayStation. I don't have a PS5 because they don't exist yet, but I have an Xbox, and I have a PS4, and I have a computer, and I play all of them, and I play video games on all of them. My computer's become more of a workhorse for me than a gaming rig anymore. But it's hard to say one is better than the other because in my opinion they fit their own little niche. Especially for me, certain games that I'll play on here, but there are games that they just don't make on the consoles. Like we all played Phantasmaphobia recently, and it was a computer-only game. If you want to play that, you gotta have a computer. I think we're getting into a kind of a scheme where there's the gap between what's on PC or console is getting smaller and smaller. Everything just about comes out on everything anymore, except for exclusives. But when you think about like Sony exclusive, they eventually come out on PC. Most games that come out on the Microsoft consoles come out on the PC. Nintendo's kind of an oddball one. Most of their stuff that's first party doesn't come out on PC. It's first party, so it stays on the Switch. Nick, what are your thoughts on this PC versus console gaming dilemma?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you are. Is I find that certain games are good for PC and certain games are good for console. I play on all of them, same. So, it just depends on what type of game I'm playing. If I'm playing a 4X strategy, yeah, that's going to be PC. I would agree, Diablo, I can play it on console. I prefer it on PC. Most RTSs, I prefer playing on PC than console. And it really just depends on, for those games, for certain games that are designed for keyboard and mouse, what platform they were designed for initially, right? Because we have seen with Halo Wars, and that's one you brought up. That game, for me, in my perspective, that game can be done on console. I think it works well. Now, would I prefer to play it on PC? Yes, I prefer to have a keyboard and mouse, but for controller, I think it works really well. And I don't think I could play like Age of Empires on there. But those Halo War games were designed for console and then put onto the PC as well. Or at least the first one was. I don't know about the second one, but the first one was definitely designed for console in mind, right? So they developed it for that platform and then threw it on the PC later. I think actually, I don't think it even came out initially on the PC. I think it came out later on PC. Whereas Halo 2 came out at the same time. So I think they kind of had a coalition going on there with both platforms. But yeah, I mean, I like to play on everything, anything I can play on. I prefer console in most cases because PCs, the nice thing about consoles is they have that kind of integrated, kind of structured platform where you just play the game or you insert the disc and it just plays, right? You don't have to worry about, because you think about it, when you go on the console, when you open it up and you start playing the game, do you go to the options menu? Maybe you do, and maybe you go to the options menu to, like, for a console, maybe you turn on subtitles, or maybe you go there to invert your y-axis, or maybe you go there to now that we have newer consoles and stuff, maybe you go there to see the options for graphics as far as performance mode versus graphics mode, right? And that's about it. But when you think about PC games, when I think about PC games, the options menu is the first thing I go to. And that's changing the video options and various things like that. And then finding the right combination of resolution and graphical fidelity on a PC, on my PC, right? Or whatever PC you have, to play the game where it looks good and can still function without a bunch of frame rate dips and other various issues like that. Whereas a console has a very structured platform where the game, in most cases, the game is just going to work right out of the box. You don't have to worry about going in and messing with all the settings and various things like that, and making sure that your PC can support the game that you're playing. Right? You just go in there, and if it's made for Xbox or if it's made for PlayStation, you just pop it in and play it. Right? And that's the thing I like about console. It's an easy thing to get into. It's just plug and play, basically. We got a little bit more advanced where it's plug, download, and play, but it's essentially still the same concept as when the first iteration of consoles, where it's still essentially that plug and play concept. Whereas PC is more plug in, configure, and play, or plug in and hope that your PC can play said game, right? So it really just depends on, in a lot of games on PC, you can play with a console or with a controller. So, as long as that game has controller support, and which a lot of games nowadays do. So it really just comes down to where you want to, I think personally, it really comes down to where you want to invest your money, right? And also where your friends are playing. First off, with investing your money, do you want to invest your money on your PC and keeping your PC up to date to play the newest titles? And if so, stick with PC and play that. It's an expensive hobby on PC. I think a little bit more expensive than console. Whereas you can buy, nowadays you can buy a $500 PlayStation or a $500 Xbox and play the newest stuff.
PlayStation's not real, don't forget.
Oh yeah,
PlayStation is non-existent.
The imaginary PlayStation.
Yes.
But in concept, that's how it's supposed to work. But you can buy those things, a $500 console, play it. In any game that comes out to you can play it and it plays well. Whereas a PC, in most cases, and depending on where you go, you're not going to get the type of fidelity that you do with a console, like a Series X or the imaginary PlayStation 5, that you do with a $500 PC, right? You probably can't build a PC equivalent to those for $500. I'm pretty sure you cannot. So you would be spending more money. And then, of course, the upkeep of a PC is a lot higher than a console is, personally. That's just kind of where I see it. But as far as gaming on both, I love gaming on both. I'll play on my PC games on there. I'll play on my console games on there. Just depends on what I'm in the mood to play. So, I'm down for both platforms, PC and console. I don't really care. As long as it has the games I want to play, I'll play it.
I'm in agreement with that for the most part. I mean, at least, to some extent. Now, if you're all about, like as Nick said, if you're all about graphics and performance, the console's never going to perform to the specifications of a built-up PC. I mean, even with the new consoles, the Xbox Series X and then the PlayStation 5, they're $500 machine. Yeah, the imaginary PS5. They're good machines, but they're never going to stand toe-to-toe with a $1,200 or $1,000 PC. It's just not. It's not feasible. I mean, Microsoft and Sony can get the price down. I mean, I don't know if you can equate it to anything, but maybe you can equate it to a $700 PC or an $800 PC. But anybody who's building a computer, are going to build things that because the big push, in my opinion, for PC over console gaming for a lot of times is graphical fidelity and performance. Like, you on consoles, you're most of the time locked to 30 to 60 frames per second. On a PC, you're pretty much unlimited, unlocked frames. You're at the limitation of what your hardware can push that you built. You can get 80 frames, you can get 90, you can get 120 frames. You can get up there. It's just what can your hardware sustain, and you're just not going to get that with a console. But that PC may last you, in my opinion, longer. I don't know how to gauge that. I mean, we're coming out with a new console about every 7 to 8 years now is when they're putting out a new console, somewhere around that time frame, I think. We're getting a new console,
right? I mean, 360 and PS3, those were out for 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
The new consoles came out. Now the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, that was around like 7 to 8 years or something.
I thought the 360.
But remember though, I'm sorry, Pat. But remember though, the Xbox One and the PS4 had mid-gen refreshes
That's
too
true.
Right.
of
That's true.
console.
But you didn't have to get those, is what I'm saying. Is you
No,
could have stuck with those, and that's the benefit of the console. You basically have a 5 to 10 year guarantee that you're going to be able to play whatever game that they put out for that console. Because depending on how long the console goes into production for, you have at a minimum of 5 years. It's been most likely 7+ years on average. I bet if we probably went back to it, because I think the original PlayStation was back in the early '90s, early mid '90s,
yeah,
somewhere around there, and they didn't come out with a new PlayStation 2 until the 2000s. So
yeah, and they only did that really just to compete with Xbox,
right,
who
and
came
then
out the year before, and they saw they were doing well.
right, and so like I said, I think that's where you're going to run into those differencing people, because even Microsoft's making it to where you can play mouse and keyboard on some of their games now on the console. I've not tried it. Have any of you guys tried using a mouse and keyboard on your Xbox?
Yes.
PlayStation 4.
Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, like Russ was saying,
PlayStation.
PlayStation 4. PlayStation 4 has had that forever.
Right.
Microsoft just started to introduce that towards the end of Xbox One's lifespan and now Series X, which is kind of surprising, being that they're, the creators of Windows.
I think their biggest
so late.
I think their biggest thing was and I will and anybody who plays games should be able to easily admit this. Competition in multiplayer, when playing with a keyboard and mouse versus a controller, you have an advantage on like FPS games. I'm sorry, but you just do.
Oh,
I could-
absolutely.
Well,
could
unless
switch
you're
my-
one of those insanely talented people with a controller, which there's a small percentage of that.
But I mean,
obviously.
those people that are super talented with a controller, if you give them a mouse and keyboard, that's probably going to make them even more talented, because I can move across the screen with my mouse a lot further and quicker than I can with a thumbstick controller, because you're limited to what the controller puts out, the force that you're using. You cannot adjust the sensitivity enough on that controller to do what I can do in half an inch on a mouse in like a fraction of a millisecond, to what you have to do on a controller with your thumb. It's just, there's no correlation.
That's strange because, you have as many gamer friends as I do, and I mean, it's like almost split down the middle when I get, especially the younger crowd. When I get to them, I'm like asking them, I'm like, well, you play first person shooters? Yeah, dude. What do you prefer? Oh, I have got to play it on PS4. I've got to play it on Xbox. I'm like, so you've never computer? But then there's a couple, 3 of them as well that say, oh, there's a young lady at work that I work with. She's Overwatch. Like, she plays the heck out of Overwatch. She streams it. She loves it. And I was like, oh, so you have Overwatch for Xbox? She looked at me like I was crazy, and she's like, no, you don't play Overwatch. You play it on PC. I'm like, oh, that because for me, I'm the same as you. I would much rather play those games, but I am getting better, I think, on the console with first-person shooters. So I don't know. I mean, yes, I agree with you in the essence of what you're saying, Patrick, but I also tend to disagree with this new generation coming through that a lot of them do love.
Well, I'm not talking about whether they love or not. I'm talking about technicality.
And they're good at it.
But I'm just talking about on a technicality point. That's
on a technical aspect.
That's the whole reason
I think you're
Microsoft
right.
has been. I mean, that's Microsoft's stance on it. How do they control multiplayer? That's been their stance on it for a long time. How do we keep multiplayer on a level playing field? Because that used to be the big issue with allowing cross-platform play between PC and Xbox, was how do I control the advantage the mouse and keyboard gives an FPS player versus the controller? Because even Microsoft admitted that you have an advantage with the mouse and keyboard. I can do things on a mouse and keyboard that you can't do on a controller. I can macro the crap out of everything on a keyboard, and you're not doing that on a controller. I can macro out sections of my screen that says if I hit one, target coordinates X, Y, this, that, do this and that. You can't do that on a controller. I don't care what you do. And that's what I'm saying is everybody remembers those old keyboard and mouse, left hand keyboard and mouse, the little keyboard and trackpad stuff that was made for your left hand that you can macro out like 12 to 16 buttons. You guys remember those things? They used to be in the shape of a hand, and now they're more streamlined. I can't remember what they used to call those, but they used to just be like a so controller or whatever. We used to buy those all the time, and you could program those for FPS to do things that you have to lift your thumb up to go to A, B, A, X, Y, and Z. I've got my middle finger rested on what would that be, and and I can hit those buttons faster than you could pick your finger up and go to another button. That's what I'm saying, is that there is a mechanical advantage to using those items, and Microsoft admitted it for the longest time is one of the reasons why they didn't allow cross-platform play. And now it's just an assumption that, hey, if you're playing cross-platform, because now you could still turn that off. In most games that allow you to do like FPS cross-platform, you can say, I don't want to play with PC people if I'm on a console. You can say that, and it will not show you rooms that have PC players in it, because it is an advantage, and Microsoft knows it, and they want to try to protect and make the game fun for everybody. So I mean, no matter what somebody says, that I can be better with a controller. Yeah, if I use a controller 90% of the time, I'm going to be better than I am with a keyboard, and vice versa. But what comes down to is how can the weakest link destroy a mid-tier player on something just because of a controller? And that is what happens. A mid-tier player can get decimated by a newbie playing with a keyboard and mouse that knows at least what they're doing with a keyboard and mouse, is what I'm saying. And that's been Microsoft's stance, and that's probably why they've locked that down for the longest time, and now we're just getting into uncharted territories. But if they start letting you put a keyboard and mouse on everything, there's no reason that you can't just do it all together.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a PC guy. I've never been a PC guy. I mean, you guys have seen my PC. I'm not a PC guy. The consoles, to me, in an overall, are better, and that's to me. PC, everything is changing every second. There's a new this, a new that, a new update for everything. There's a lot of upkeep with the PC, in my opinion. The console is plug and play. Now it is becoming very PC-like, though. I'm really kind of surprised this last two generations didn't have some sort of plug-in or expansion or some crap that they were trying at the beginning of, like Sega CD. Then they had all the additional crap. Consoles are just friendly. They're easy. And you can do the keyboard and mouse on it. I suck at keyboard and mouse. If it's a shooter, I can do real good sniping, but if you come running at me, I all of a sudden have got Tourette's. It's just freaking me out. But consoles, I love. I mean, I grew up with Nintendo and Atari and all the old damn systems, and I've always played a system. I don't think I really played any computer games till like Flight Simulator back in like 96, 98. That's probably the first time I really started playing PC games. I've jumped in here and there, whoever had computer games, Oregon Trail, my brother had, and all this stuff. But consoles are just friendly. They're cost effective overall. I mean, so if you got 7 years out of a console at $500, and then the next gen comes out, same price, say $500. So 14 years, I spent $1,000 in 14 years for my consoles. Are you going to get that much quality out of a $1,000 PC for 14 years?
Well, I mean, I can put that into perspective for you. I built my computer in 2008, and it's still running. I put $1,200 in it.
Okay. Now, Nick built my PC when we both went back to school. What was that, 8 years ago, Nick, give or take? Oh, no, hell, it's been longer than that, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been longer than that.
Yeah.
Probably like 10 years.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah, about 10 years. So, and I think we paid a little over $600 for all the parts and crap on mine. And it's a solid computer at the time. It just, but it wasn't a beefy, gaming machine. It was designed for my schooling, AutoCAD, things like that. But, if I wanted to build something for $1,400 right now, is it gonna? And I don't mean just lasting that long. I mean, is it gonna be is quality as what comes out 14 years later? Is it going to have the same, better graphics? Is it going to have the, all that without having to spend another $6, 12, $1,500? I mean, what's that big fancy graphics card that just came out? The GTX 3080 or whatever?
Yeah, 3080.
Yeah, and how much was that damn thing? Pardon my
It
language.
was like 1,000 when it came out.
Yeah,
Right, but you have to understand that's top of the line.
that's true.
You can't
Right,
like
and if you
compare-
want to stay with the bleeding edge, right? I mean, that's pretty much bleeding edge at that point. If you're going to stay with the bleeding edge of your PC and upgrading it on the bleeding edge every time, then yeah, you're going to be spending a pretty penny every single time. But if you want a PC that can, I have a gaming laptop and it's a good laptop, but it is getting old in the long in the
You
tooth.
haven't had that long. I mean, you've had it, what, 2 years?
No,
3 years?
I've had longer than that. I've had it probably for like 5 years now.
I don't think you've had it that long.
He's had it for a long time.
Yeah,
'cause
I've bought it since
when we were
I
traveling.
think
You had it, didn't you?
yeah, I bought it pretty much when I moved into this house, and I've been in this house for like 6 years now.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, but you
It's-
can't. You cannot compare anything like a GTX.
but it can still play
3080.
games in high specs.
Right, but I'm just
Right.
saying, you can't compare like a GTX 3080 to an Xbox because I'm sorry, the GTX.
Oh, no.
3080
It will
It's-
eat the Xbox alive.
Right, yeah, it does. Like I've seen it run game at like 190 FPS, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I mean, so that's what you can't compare it to. You have to compare it to. If I built a $500 computer today, I could probably get I don't know if I can get that as close as the Series X and the PS4. I may have to spend $600 on that to get that close. Maybe just because I can't.
I think
get
you
the
would have
hardware
to spend
deal.
more to
Yeah.
the $1,000 range.
I don't think so because if I spend $1,000, I'm going to get a computer that can do 120 FPS easy, and then I've just blown the Xbox out of the water. And
Well, they had those, and I don't remember what they came up with, but remember when the Series X and the PlayStation 5 were, they weren't out yet, but they were talked about in their specs, and you had those sites that had built an equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember how much they said, because they said how much they spent to build something that was
Yeah,
equivalent.
Linus Tech did something like that as well.
A lot of places did. I think even Digital Foundry did one where they built one. I just can't remember how much they spent. I want to say they spent close to $1,000 to get something equivalent, but I honestly don't remember.
I mean, if I spent $1,000, I can definitely guarantee you I can put together a better PC than this Xbox or PlayStation. Because that's usually my budget, and I build a mid-high range PC every time. When I spend $1,000 to $1,200, I build a high to mid-range PC. I don't build myself mid-range PCs. If I do it right. Now I can't afford a $3,000 high-end best of everything, so I'm spending the $1,200 to $1,500 for mid to high range. When I say mid to high range, I'm buying the best motherboard I can get, the best CPU I can get, like right under like max top dollar.
Well, but if you look at it though, really, if you look at when you do that, if you look at the time frame of consoles and stuff like that, so Xbox One came out, what was it, 7 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2013, I think.
7 years ago. So if you take what you spent, so if you had initially, at that 7 year mark, you initially invested, say $700, when the next generation comes around, you may only have to invest $300 to $400 for the next generation because maybe you could keep certain pieces from the old one and just kind of upgrade a little bit. So I would say within a 2-generation time frame, you may only be a couple of $100 short or a couple of $100 higher than if you bought consoles and still easily keep up with the graphical differences between console and PC easily, if not do better. So,
Right.
I mean, there is something to say. I mean, it's almost more the fact of like, I mean, think about it, Shane. You have a PS4, you have the VR, you have an Xbox, you have a Switch. For you, it's more of a preference of that's where you want to spend your money in those things. Now, Nick and Patrick are the supreme gamers. They're the higher gamers, and I like to think me and you are kind of on the same level when it comes to gaming. You probably actually game a lot different titles, but I'm willing to go out and get the PC so that I can play the World of Warcraft, the civilizations in some cases, and the Star Trek, not Star Trek. I was about to say Star Trek. I was going to say more like StarCraft. Those titles there.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the difference within that.
Right. And it does come down to preferences, but you have to understand that what you're going to do. So while we may say, so here's the big thing that was kind of left out of there. You are the outlier in this group to some extent, Russ, because between that 7 years of Xbox, there was an intermediate console, and we all bought one except for you.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
so technically, in the span of the 7 year, we spent $1,500 or 13 or
Yeah.
whatever because
On
we bought three
consoles.
consoles. Yeah, on
Yeah.
Yeah,
consoles.
that is true. I mean, yeah, I didn't think about that mid-gen. And
And
yeah, you're absolutely right.
and we would do that for our console preferences. If we were playing PlayStation as heavily as we were playing Xbox, we probably would have bought the PS4 Pro. But it was kind of our back burner, like exclusives. We weren't really playing group games with that. But I would honestly say that it's all in preference, and I prefer to play both, and so I spend my money on both. But my computer has outlasted consoles, and it could still play games. Now, it doesn't mean that my console is the rendition it was when I previously built it. It still has the same motherboard in there, but I did buy the top end. I replaced the processor that I had with the max that I could put in there. I also maxed out the memory, and I've replaced the video card in here twice. I've decided that the video card that was in there wasn't enough, and when I buy a new video card, I'm not buying a $600, $800 video card. I'm getting a $300 one or a $200 one in there, whatever I get, and sometimes I'll catch them on sale. Now, the thing that's hurting PC market right now is the cryptocurrency market because they're driving all the video card VGA cards up the wazoo because they're hard to get a hold of because they're using them in their miners and crap like that. But I mean, it's the same power supply that's been in there. If you buy a good power supply, you wouldn't have to buy one for a very long time. Like I've got a platinum rated 850 true power supply in there, and Nvidia processors are my go-to for me, and they just run and run and run and run, and I don't ever have issues. I'll go through every probably 6 years or 7 years and replace all the fans on it. And then, I've also put solid states in here because when I first built this machine, solid states weren't the thing. They were there, but they were like expensive, like a lot of money. And I remember when I put a solid state in this thing, it was like buying a brand new computer because it just performed like 1,000 times better. But if you want to play something that's going to give you 120 FPS, you're not going to play on a console.
No.
If that's your
No.
goal,
Not
is
for
to
another
play
generation or two.
right? And I like my console because of my big TV, but I know a lot of people who play console on a monitor because TVs really aren't as unless you're spending a lot more money. TVs really can't play to the specifications and high quality as certain monitors can for a fraction of the cost.
Well, that could be a hardware upgrade for your console that adds into the cost if that's what you want to do. Like even if you got like a 43 or a 50 inch or something like that was top of the line, where because you don't want to spend the 3,000 on the big unit, so you spend 1,500 for a mid-size screen, because you want that 120 or you want that gaming mode or whatever from the TV.
Right. Yep.
That's still an additional hardware. So I think cost is a moot point when it comes down to it. It's really like, I mean, those that make that argument for cost, I think we have a way of saying, well, wait a second, that's not true because you could have spent the same money on a viable computer and still have the same experience, if not even better in most cases.
Right, and you just think of the computer as not we're talking about gaming here, but my computer is not strictly a gaming machine, and most people's it's not. I mean, my computer does everything that I don't do gaming that I need a computer for. I mean, I do the video editing on it. I do, everything on it. Any type of word processing, Excel, browsing the internet, anything that I need to use a computer for, I use it for. And my Xbox is my some people use it as a media center. I don't like that. I use the built-in apps on my TV, but it's my gaming. That's what I do with it. I play games on it. So And I think cost is just, it would be a cop out to say that cost is the reasoning, but it depends on your level of involvement, I guess, because like I said, all of us own every console and a PC, so we're kind of a bad market in that aspect because we're a bad group in that because we don't have a. I would say that I probably spend more on consoles than I do computer, though. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not that I don't want to. It's just that
Right.
PC is expensive. I
Yeah,
would love to have the Samsung 49-inch curved gaming monitor. I would absolutely. They're like almost $2,000, but I would absolutely love one of those.
Right.
And probably
Oh,
play
yeah.
everything on it.
Right.
But what
Right.
about games,
And you want-
though? But what about games? I mean, we're talking about what we spend on those, but like, Nick, you have 8,000, 274,000, 2 million games on
PC
Steam.
gaming is
You
my
know,
argument.
As far as like cost wise, if we're talking about cost, I probably spend more on console games cost wise because a lot of the games I have on Steam come through
But
sales and
Yes.
humble bundles and various things like that where I can get like multiple games for nothing, right? Especially during Steam's like winter sales and summer sales, like I'll go through like $5 games, and these games have been out for a couple of years and they're ones I wanted to pick up and they're like 50 cents or a dollar, and I'll just throw a whole bunch of them into my into the cart, and all in all it cost me like $20 to buy like
Yep.
10 games.
and I will 100% agree with you on that.
So now I have like 10 other, last time we talked, my Steam library was 760 games. Now I have 766 games because I bought a few other games. But
But you can play
again,
more games on PC for cheaper than you can on Xbox.
right? And
Absolutely.
all these games that I bought on PC through Steam, ultimately the I guess the 6 additional games the last time we talked probably only cost me like $20 at the most.
Right, and we just spent $60 on a single game. And I will say that a lot of, even on PC, the games are still $60. But I will also say that it's a lot easier to get a brand new game for 10% off or $10 off on PC than it is on any console. And I think that's probably because of competition. I can buy a PC game from umpteen vendors digitally, is what I mean, digitally, if I want a game digitally. Whereas on console, if I want a digital game, I have to buy from Microsoft, or I have to buy from Sony, or I have to buy from Nintendo. But on my computer, I can go to Steam. I can go to any of these other digital retailers, Green Man Gaming, Humble Bundle. I can go to any of these guys, and you can find a 10% off or a $10 off a new game purchase of a new upcoming title pretty regularly and easily.
Yeah, now you can, and it's not always, but I'm going to throw it out there. You can get those gaming bundle deals and stuff through Humble Bundle for PS4 or PS, maybe 5 if it's real, and Xbox. You can get
How?
that. I have done that.
I guess they give you
They do have them.
They do the codes. Yeah.
Yeah, they do have them
It's-
sometimes. It's rare though.
It's not often.
They don't have
yeah.
them very
Yeah.
often.
I forgot about that. Yeah, but I'm just saying. In all honesty, I would agree with Nick that I can play more games on the PC for cheaper than I can play games on the console.
Oh yeah.
Because I can get the same game. I guarantee you, I can get the same game. We probably could have got Hitman 3 on PC for $50 or 53 or 55, and not have paid $60 for it. But since we got it on the console, it was $60 because they don't run. They very rarely run discounts on pre-order games on consoles like they do on PC.
Steam typically runs on new releases, especially pre-orders. Not every game, granted, but a
good
lot
chunk
of the
it, yeah.
games, they'll run a 10% off, or $10 off or whatever before the game even releases.
Yep.
So you can usually pick up a game for way cheaper than you can on a console.
I would say
100% agree with Patrick on that.
Yeah, PC's got the on the number of games and the so I mean maybe that's where your cost savings is when you think about it overall. Maybe spending more on a computer than you would a console is fine, but you would make it up in the games and the cost of gaming. Just because that's where your cost is, and that's a good point, Russ. I often forget how cheap PC games is, and Nick's Steam library is a testament to that. I can't even catch up to him if I wanted to, and and I participate in the Steam sales, and sometimes Green Man Gaming will have sales, or Humble Bundle, or Origin, or any of these guys, and or now what's the big one that they keep on having they keep giving away free games all the time. What's the new big
Epic.
one? Epic, yeah, the Epic Games.
Epic gives away games like, I mean,
gives away games.
I mean,
you
I
have to pay
have
for it.
So on Epic, let's put this into perspective for Epic. On Epic in my store, and put this into perspective, I only bought one game through the Epic store. And I don't remember what game it was, but I've only purchased one game through there. But from their free games that they give out every...
It was weekly, but now I think it's every couple weeks now.
Yeah, like every couple weeks they give out a free game. And on there...
I've only bought like 3 or 4 through there, but I have like I have like, I don't remember the number, but it was pretty high because I log in once or twice a month and grab the free game.
Oh yeah, I always grab the free game, but I don't think they give you a count. But I probably have at least 40 games on there, and that's just grabbing the free ones. The only one I purchased on here was Hades, and it was on sale.
Right, and you don't get that. I mean, from Microsoft and PlayStation, you don't get free games. You get free games if you subscribe to Game Pass. You get, deals with Gold. They give you free games, and then Game Pass, you get games. But they're not free. You're paying for them. But on the PC, they really are free. So, I mean, so I would say that they are, if you look at overall cost, they're probably even. The amount that you spend on your PC levels out, and the more you spend on your PC probably eventually levels out with consoles in what you spend on the games for consoles. Because very rarely can you get a $60 game on a console when it came out years down the road, even for $5. They go on sale for like $20 and $15, but I don't think I've ever seen like a AAA title be $5 on Xbox, where you can find AAA titles 4 or 5 years old on Steam for $5.
Yeah, especially during their winters and summer sales.
Yeah. So
super
cheap. If you look at like Maneater, that game went out. PlayStation Plus subscribers got it for free this month. I think it was this month. But you still can't buy it for under $20, $25.
Right, but remember, you have to be a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you can't get it.
That's true.
So I mean, that's not free. You had to pay that $14.99 or whatever PlayStation Plus is running right now. I can't remember.
And if you don't continue to pay it, you can't play it.
Right, but on like the Epic Store, they don't care. You get it free, and you just got to keep your account. That's all you got to do. You log into your account, you download the game. They don't say, okay, we're revoking this free game, and in a few days. So, but yeah, Steam, man. I mean, I log in Steam sometime and just look at what's on sale and be like, I want that. Have I played that? Have I played that? And stuff like that. So it's
I do the same thing. It's like I log into Steam. I usually log into Steam every day and look at, because they have sales every day.
Yep.
And I'll look on there and be like, oh, hey, I kind of wanted to play that. What? It's $1.50? Sure.
Right. Yeah. I wish Sony and Microsoft would do something like this, but Steam's store, I love getting reminders for them. Hey, this game that you favorited, because I wish Microsoft and Sony would do that. Hey, this game that you put on your wish list is on sale. And it'll say on sale for 50% off, and you're like, I got to get that now.
Well, Xbox does do that, but I don't like the way they do it. Because Steam it sends you an email, and
if you have the app on your phone, the app pops up a reminder.
Right, and the app will pop up. Now for Xbox, it does tell you if a game goes. So if you add it to your wish list on Xbox, it does tell you if a game goes on sale. But in order to see that, you have to go to the notification section on your Xbox,
right?
And then it will say like, "Hey, that game you wish list is on sale for."
I want an email at the least, or
right. I don't know why they don't do emails.
Yeah, I want a push notification from the app is what I would prefer.
Right. They're, and thinking about Xbox, and I never looked it up. There might be a way to do that where it does push notificate you of a game that's on sale. I've never actually personally looked into it to see if there was, because I would assume that once you wish list it, unless you specified otherwise, it would just push an email to you saying that it is on sale.
Right. I mean, if they do have it and it's not a function by default, Microsoft needs a lesson in marketing. I don't think they do, honestly. I don't think they have notifications that tell you, because I would think any marketing newbie would have said, hey, Microsoft, let's enable this. Let's send out this new feature and enable it by default. And anybody that has the app gets a notification when their wish list items are on sale, because that's a major driving feature for me for PCs. And I would say access to games you get. So it's kind of hard. It just because I love all of them. I love PC and I love consoles, and I can't. I could never pick between the two. I could find reasons to own a console and reasons to own a PC. If I'm being pressed against the wall by a console gamer, I can browbeat with PC statistics. If I'm being pushed against the wall by a PC person on console gaming, I could pull out statistics and nail it which way or the other, because I love both and there's reasons for both, and it's there's no way that I could ever pick. As we've all said, there's reasons to play something on one versus the other, and and all this kind of stuff. And I love my PC, and if my computer died tomorrow, I will guarantee you that I will figure out a way to scrape up $1,200 to build a new one, or I'm going to replace the component that died in it. So that's another thing, is that I can replace a component in my PC. If my main board goes out, I'm going to spend $200 or $300 or maybe even more. Same thing with a processor or a video card. So the components aren't cheap, but that's something that I can do if it happens. Now, my Xbox dies, there's probably a chance that I'm not going to be able to fix what's in there.
I don't want to get too far from something you said a minute ago
Sure.
about like the wish list for Xbox or something like that, right? They have the capability. They already do it. You have the Game Pass app on your phone. If we have something that's leaving or coming on to Game Pass or something like that, they have the ability to update. They send you a little notification on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're telling me the technology is that much different that you couldn't put on there, hey, big sale. This is on sale. Like, they have that technology. They just don't do it because
Yeah, but
for
you get
whatever
emails
reason.
all the time for that, don't you?
I don't get emails for like when games are in my wish list go on sale. I never get an
Yeah.
email for that.
Oh,
That's
See,
what
I-
I'm more
I
I
talking
do on
about.
Steam.
okay. So I get emails saying, hey, these games are just now on sale or blah 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 from Xbox or whatever.
Well, I think the ploy is that Xbox wants you to come to the store. They want you to look in the store and look at those things, because even though one or two things may be on sale, it's just like an end cap item at the grocery store.
Right.
You don't need that damn end caps, but you're going to get it because you're like, oh, that looks cool. So it's the same thing as a game. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that game was there. I mean, okay, well, it's $30. Okay, that's
I didn't need
15%
those
off.
Hostess cupcakes, but they were on the end
Exactly.
and they looked good.
Yep.
Yep. And so I can't believe Microsoft. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's some type of thing that I don't know. Microsoft has an app. They have two apps. They have the Game Pass app and they have the Microsoft Gaming app, and I have both of them on my phone. You're telling me that the Microsoft Gaming app can't send me a push notification that says, hey, this game on your wish list is on sale? Because honestly, what happens with my Microsoft wish list is I forget about it, and I'll go through and I'll buy something that's on it, and Microsoft is not smart enough to remove it from my wish list. And I'll go back in every now and then, add something to my wish list, and be like, oh, what do I have in here? And I go look, and I'm like, I already bought that one, remove that. I already bought that one, remove that. So it is way behind the times. And I don't even use the PlayStation one in that manner. I don't even know if they have a wish list on the PlayStation Store. Do they have something like that on the PlayStation Store?
The PlayStation Store is such a god awful disaster. It doesn't matter. If they did have a push notification, it would take 6 months to get to you.
Right. So I mean, it's just one of those things where PC has things that's done better, but they've also been around longer. If you consider PC gaming has been around forever, and I mean console to some extent, but I mean the big players now, no. When you consider Microsoft and Sony are the big players, and I would consider Nintendo an intermediate player who was a big player that needs to get. I think Microsoft and Nintendo needs to become back in the market as a big player, but I don't know what they're too busy playing with Mario or something. So.
Yeah, Nintendo is doing what Nintendo do, and they're not going to listen to anything. They're not going to look for any trends. They're just going to do what they want. That's
Right.
one thing you got to give them credit to is
They're still around, so
yeah, they're doing
something.
something right. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, just this is this podcast is just going on about that about the consoles versus PC. I mean, I can never pick. I can't pick one over the other, and I will never pick one over the other. I will
Well,
always
I
have
will always
both.
pick console because, well, my PC sucks.
Well, that's because you don't put the money in your
No.
PC. And if you did put the money in your PC, you may play a little bit more PC.
And
You know,
as a group, there's more co-op games within PC. I mean, we haven't. I mean, as a group, we haven't even explored RTSs. Uh,
Right.
like RTSs. I mean, even like we played a little bit of Borderlands, but I mean, I think Borderlands is much better on the computer than it plays on the console. I mean,
Agreed.
it's those things there. I mean, most of the reason why I play console now is because we play them as a group, and we've been getting a lot of games on that. But I've been thinking about trying to get Jedi on the computer because I'm wondering if that might play better for me versus the other. But I know we're trying to review games that way, and so I'm trying to keep consistent with that
Well, it's
for sure.
The Jedi Fallen Order. That's on the Microsoft Ultimate thing now. Do those games come to
I thought
PC too?
I thought the EA Play does not come to console.
EA Play does, just not new game. You mean PC?
Yes, PC.
Yeah,
Like
I don't know. I didn't look at that. I
I
don't
might
know if it
have to
does or
look
not.
that up because if that's the case, then I might be downloading that.
But yeah, I mean, I could never pick, and I don't know about you, Nick. I know Nick, you play more PC games than I do, but Nick plays more games than all of us do. But I
yeah.
would consider that I'm pretty close, or I try to stay with Nick. I can't. I sometimes I can't keep up, but I
Well,
could never pick. What about you,
nobody can fault you for not keeping up with Nick.
Nick? I mean, could you ever pick one over the other?
No, I like them both, and I find myself, I play both. It just depends on, really for me, it just depends on what I want to play, right? If I'm going to play some sort of game on my PC or a specific game on my PC, then I'll of course, then I'll play on my PC and vice versa. I mean, shoot, I even own the same game on my PC and Xbox
Right.
or PlayStation or whatever.
Yeah, because sometimes you just wonder. Like I played plenty of games where I got it on console, and I'm like, how would this play on PC? Because I'm just really not enjoying it. And then I get it on PC, and I'm like, oh my god, this makes a night and day difference. I cannot. I love this game, but I hated it when it was on console, or vice versa. I played games on PC where I'm like, man, this keyboard layout just kind of funky, and I can't get used to it. And I move it on over to my Xbox, and I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This was more designed for this in mind than it's hard to tell sometimes where developers, especially when they just push everything out, a game out for every console. You're like, what was your main intention? Because when you play certain things, sometimes it's easily noticeable on what their intention was, whether menu scroll or things like that. You know where their intentions came from, but sometimes it's a little harder, and you're just playing around. It doesn't feel right, and you move over to a controller, and you're like, oh, this is much better. Or you move from a controller to keyboard, and you're like, oh, this is how it was meant to be played.
Right, or even some, there's even some aspects where it's the other way. It's kind of vice versa, where a game was made for PC or a game was made for console, and it works better on the other one, right? I ran across games like that where I'm like, oh, this is all right, and I played on the console, and I'm like, well, this is just works much better. So it's like, even though it wasn't really initially designed for a controller, somehow they made it work better on that. It just
Right.
feels more fluid on the controller and vice versa, where a game might be made for the console where it just feels much better on a PC. So yeah, it just depends. For me, it really just depends on where I want to play it at the time that I want to play it. It's kind of like and like I said, I have a lot of games that I own on both. Where even in some instances where I'll play them on both. Like maybe I'll play the game when I'm on my PC and I feel like playing the game. I'll pop that on and I'll play it, and then I'll get on my Xbox or PlayStation or whatever and be like, hey, I want to play that game. Well, since I'm on here, I'm gonna go ahead and just pop it on here and play with the controller.
Do I want to play it in my recliner, or do I want to play it in my desk chair?
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just being like, oh, where do I want to play it right now? Where do I feel more comfortable at the moment? Over
Right.
here, over there.
That is one thing I didn't think about till you just said it. I do prefer, pretty much in any game I play, I prefer to sit on my chair or my couch than sitting at a desk. It feels more comfortable. It feels more relaxed. Even if it's if it's a stressed out, run and gun, multiplayer shooter, I still like to just sit back and relax in my chair on my couch. I may sit up a little bit more, but that's one thing. And you don't have to. You can hook your damn PC up to your TV. It's fine.
Oh my god, it looks
But
awful. That's awful.
but yeah, but I'm saying is, I don't know. I get more comfort and relaxation and enjoyment out of my games if I'm sitting like that than I am sitting at my desk. But I sit at a computer all day and day at work too, at a desk, and when I get home, I want to relax.
Well, I think that'd be all of us. None of us actually work like manual labor jobs. We're all desk jockeys here. So, I mean, but I still don't mind to be perfectly honest with you, right now, because of COVID, I'm working from home. I sit in my desk chair from the time I get up in the morning until time to get off from work. And sometimes I just spin my chair around and I'm at my computer and I'm like, all right, time to play some games. So that doesn't bother me as much as that. But sometimes I agree with you. I just want to plop in my recliner and use my controller and play through some games on there. But it's just some games just don't work as well, which, that's the way it works, unfortunately, but I could never pick.
Shane has never been immersed into 47 hours straight of an
endless
MMO.
Space or endless space.
Yeah. I mean,
well, as you know, I'm not an MMO guy, just because that's a game that's going to be addictive, and I don't want to be addicted.
I'm not even sure you could play a modern RTS or even a turn-based strategy. We played plenty of those
on
games
my computer. Oh, hell no!
Even if you had a brand new computer, I'm sure that I don't even know if you could sit still that long.
Oh no! When it comes to sitting on his butt, I can hold my own, buddy.
Just play a game. Just play one match or one turn, or I guess match of Civilization
together as a multiplayer. You'll be cussing everybody at for like turn 30. You'll be like, Russ, can you not go faster?
And then like 30 hours later,
I'm running out of pee bottles.
Yeah.
Even playing like something like Civilization or like Endless Space or any of those, just playing those single player versus AI is like, those games, like I have to just, after like 4 or 5 hours, I'm like, I'm going to save this and I'll come back later. Because it's like, this game is nowhere close to being done.
Yeah. I agree. Because we played endless space games like that, where we played like 5 or 6 hours, and one of us will be, Russ or I will be like, dude, I just got to stop. I can't do this anymore. You just save it, and then you're like, all right, you want to play some more? We'll load it back up and play again. So that was kind of the good thing about those games too. And I just don't think that console could ever really do that unless they really adopt keyboard and mouse to that extent. And I've not really seen an RTS that I thought worked really well on the console, in my opinion. And turn-based strategy is the same way. I know when I'm talking like grand strategy. I'm like, I cannot imagine playing StarCraft on a console or Rise of Nations or Age of Empires on a console.
Well, it's like
would be pretty tough. Yeah.
Halo Wars, I think, works pretty well on console.
We played that, and I couldn't get into it.
I'm gonna have to agree with Nick on that. I think it played darn well.
I liked it better on the PC.
Now, one game that I will say that came out to console that I don't even know how you could play that game was Stellaris. I don't know how
either,
you could
man.
play it on the console.
I put tons and tons of time in that game on PC, and I'm like, when I saw that it was on console, I'm like, how? I don't even want to attempt this.
Yeah, that's really tough.
Any 4X strategy would just be almost impossible on a console.
Yeah, especially the larger you make the maps.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much micromanagement in those games. It's just like, it would be almost. I feel like it would be almost impossible. I never tried Stellaris on the Xbox because I'm just like, I don't even know how you could even begin playing that game on the Xbox.
But if we go back in time, I can remember when I was growing up, I played the classics, the Nintendo, all those classic consoles. And I will admit, around the time that PlayStation came in and into purview, I left console gaming and went to PC gaming exclusively. And I didn't pick up a PlayStation. I didn't play PlayStation until PS3, and that's when I got back into console gaming. PS3, and then the Xbox 360 time frame. And I wasn't hot and heavy into those. I was still doing a lot more PC gaming because that was between when the PlayStation came out and all that stuff was where MMO gaming was really hitting for me, and I played a lot of MMOs and a lot of 4X strategies and even just grand strategy games. I played a lot of that stuff, and that was my forte. And then Halo on 360, I kind of got that was like my first console game back into the foray, if you will, because a buddy of mine had a 360. He's like, "Let's play some Halo," and I'm like, "What's Halo?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then that became our go-to game. When that was Fish, and Russ, if you remember, that was Fish that actually brought me back into console gaming.
Well, that's the thing, though. During that period of time, PC gaming did take a little bit of a leap in front of console. That might be where this whole, actually, if we want to get really kind of thoughtful about it, that may be where some of this battle began. There was a time where PC gaming kind of like just lapped console gaming, because during that time that the MMO world was coming out, we had Counter-Strike, we had those first-person shooter games that were coming out on PC that were built so much better for PC than on the consoles. The consoles seemed to be, if you want to compare it, it would be like, there was a point where consoles were PS2 and PCs were PS4s. It was like there was a minor little bit in that time frame where the games were much more expansive on PCs than they were on consoles. So that may be in that time frame. That's when I went strictly PC gaming, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I was playing Madden and everything like that on the plain PlayStation, and playing NHL 95 and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's Dungeon Siege, there's Counter-Strike, there's Deus Ex, there's Half-Life, and then there's MMOs, and it was like, I was sucked in.
I mean, back in that time frame, a lot of what I saw, and this is just from my personal experience, is that in that time frame around the PS1 to PS2 time frame was a lot of games on consoles were single player minded, and I was like, well, I want to play with my friends, so that's why I played on PC, because they were like more geared towards playing with your friends, and as internet capable consoles, because I remember like the 360, you had to buy the when the 360 originally came out, you couldn't play online until you bought that USB network dongle, and then they came out with what was it, the Elite, that had the built-in NIC card in it, the 360 Elite, and then so. That's how consoles appeared to me when the PlayStation came out. I'm like, oh, these are all single player stuff. I want to play with my friends. So, that's how I kind of equated it. But then, like I said, my buddies got me back in. My buddy Justin, we call him Fish, got me back into console gaming with the 360, and I bought myself the 360 Elite because I didn't buy the original one. I bought the black 360 Elite, and that kind of brought me back in. And then I bought a PlayStation 3, and then I've had both consoles. I've had the consoles, all of them since then. Back when you used to be able to mod your console too.
Yeah, there's still people out there doing that, by the way.
I would be afraid to Microsoft would brick my $500 console.
Oh yeah.
And we did that too, like when the Xbox 360, started to make some games. We were gaming, on that just as much as we were gaming on the PC. I don't remember all the games on 360 we played, but but we did. I do remember some nights there gaming, getting on there and gaming for sure. I mean, we still played a lot of WoW and a lot of RTSs at that period of time, but it was definitely not until the multiplayer became kind of expansive in the console world did we really get into playing consoles more than PC. But so really, I think that the justification or the end game of all that we're talking about is that there really shouldn't be a PC versus console gaming war. It should almost be that PCs and consoles are all preference-based gaming platforms.
Yeah, it is. Just like Shane and Nick have all said, it's your preference, and that's what I believe it is. And it shouldn't be one is better than the other, because there's pros and cons to both, and in my opinion, there's not enough cons for me not to own them all. So they're Pokemon. Catch them all,
Only
right?
only con there is just cost, because
Yeah,
it's an
cost.
expensive habit.
All of them are expensive.
They all are expensive, Shane. If
Oh, I
you
know.
I-
Oh,
I-
trust me, I
I
know.
know that's what I'm saying. Like if you too could have a decent PC laptop, a gaming laptop for what you've paid for a few of your other toys. So it just you prefer the console gaming, and that's fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could, but I like a lot of my other toys better than the PC.
He he'd be hunting and pecking to move and stuff. He'd be like he'd
we're
have
Oh,
it.
we're
I'm
we're
not
playing
that bad.
we're playing endless space, and we're on tier 5 ships, and he's still trying to build a tier 1.
I know. I'm still trying to figure out the loading screen.
He's still like, what tier? What? Huh?
What? How do I make new ships? What? But I mean, and then that's just what I kind of yeah. I mean, I just could never pick, and I never will pick. And as long as I have a decent job and gaming is one of my top priorities, I'll always have all of them.
Oh yeah. Yep. When the Series X came out, we were all prepping for the launch and blah blah blah. Well, I was like, oh my god, are you ever gonna stop? No.
When I'm
But thanks,
buried,
but thanks for playing.
when I can no longer, yeah. I mean,
Oh
I'll
no,
be
my stuff's coming with me, and when a new one comes out, you're gonna stick it in the hole too.
I want to be in the nursing home playing my video games.
You ain't got enough plugins. Take off the life support. I need this.
By then hopefully we'll have like Pod VR.
Yeah.
Just put me in the pod. Make sure to put in the intravenous drip of whatever I need, and just leave me in there. I'll
Mine will
play
be filled
games.
with Mountain Dew.
Yeah, Mountain Dew intravenous drip. But yeah, I mean, so I can't pick. Shane could pick. I don't know, Russ, could you pick?
Honestly, I could pick, and that's only because I got into PCs later in life than you guys did. That was just the way it is. I like the ease of it, and that's great. But I understand why PC, they call themselves the master race, but, you know, to each his own, and just have fun doing what you're doing.
Yep. Play what you love. Russ, but I could never pick. Russ, could you pick one over the other?
What are we taking as the parameters of picking? I mean, is it like
If you had to
everything?
choose, that's it.
No, I know that, but I'm
Yeah,
saying like if I
all or
had to
nothing.
choose like all or nothing,
Could you? Because I couldn't.
I don't know if I can. I mean, but at the same time, I slightly lean towards consoles right now because like I've said in a probably two or three other podcasts, my console is my media center. It is, I mean, everything. I watch all of my shows through Xbox. I even YouTube. I even stream church through YouTube on Sundays. I everything. I mean, like I'm trying to figure out and get and set up like my next goal, and I'm using parentheses for those that can see through the podcast. My next goal is to have it automated. Like have either Alexa automated or however the automation is through that, so that when I walk in the door, I can just say whatever Xbox turn whatever the case is to have it play music or whether while I'm cooking dinner or something like that. So that's really what my next kind of goal is to do. And I'm excited about getting the PS5, which does not exist yet. I know, Shane. Um,
I want one.
because I I am starting to enjoy console gaming quite a bit more. I I'm not into the MMOs so much, and the RTSs are that we haven't had a really good RTS since heck, I don't know. I mean, Civilization still kicks out pretty
Civ
decent ones.
6.
Yeah, but I mean, even
That's
isn't
turn-based,
that
yeah.
one, yeah, 3 or 4 years old? Isn't that at least that
Oh,
old?
yeah.
So,
It's pretty old. Yep.
if the next version of StarCraft comes out, it'll be tough not to want to buy that. But even I'm hoping like Diablo 4. I'm honestly, I know this goes against everything that you are, Patrick, but I hope that they kind of come out with it on the console, and it's the same kind of button mapping that was, because I actually enjoyed the button mapping on the console for that game. I know it's strange and odd, but I just did.
But the console version was a dumbed down version of the PC version as well, because you didn't have adventures and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there were some things missing. Yeah, we were running.
I was
a
little disappointed in that.
But at the same time, I mean, I got enjoyment. I probably have 100 hours into that game minimum. I mean, I played that for.
I played through 6 seasons of that game, so.
Yeah, I'm probably somewhere within that. I mean, I played at least. I have like 12 characters or something like that on the Xbox. I mean, I just deleted it. Let's put it this way: Diablo didn't make the Series X download. I had it on the other one since I can remember. So, I mean, that's just one particular game we're talking about in that sense. So, I mean, yeah, I think I would just slightly have to. I mean, we're talking hairs. We're splitting hairs here at this point. So stop making me choose.
Right. I can't choose, and I don't want to choose. I want to play both, and I want to have both, and but I will agree with Russ on a point that I migrate more towards my console now than my PC. But it's just happenstance right now, is because those are the games that we're playing together, and and when we're reviewing games, we're locked into a little bit more of that until we get Shane to get a new computer, so we can do some more PC game reviews.
Well, I am taking donations.
Donations to Shane's computer fund.
That's right.
He takes pennies.
Heck, we might as well just start one of those darn Kickstarters or GoFundMes. I mean,
a GoFund Shane's PC.
Yeah. Do you have $20 that you don't have anything to do with? Like, just tell all of our friends, hey, if we get 500 friends combined giving us $20 a piece.
I spend all my money on cancer medicine and 3D printers.
So he could give himself more cancer.
Yep.
No, so I can make bottles to hold all my cancer pills.
That's what that resin printer's for.
That new body parts, so that when the parts fail, he can just replace them with.
Right.
That's right.
Parts.
Cool. Nick, what else? You got anything you want to add on this topic, man? I mean, I'm sure we could browbeat these both into submission for hours if we wanted to.
No, not really. I think we hit all the highlights. I mean, yeah, I agree with you guys, or at least with Patrick, in that sense where I couldn't pick either one. I love both. And if you have the funds to do so, I would say play on everything you can, because there's a lot of great games for a lot of different systems, and some games don't come out for other things. And so, if you don't play on whatever it is, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, PC, Atari, whatever, you're going to miss out on some great games. So, if you love games, try to, catch them all. Got to catch them all.
We'll all agree to play on everything except for your phone. Don't play on that.
Yeah. I think we'll all agree PS5 is non-existent and phones suck for games.
Well, yeah, here it is, the end of January, and I still don't have a PS5. Can't find one. Can't get a hold of one.
Nope. Just put them into the damn stores, quit putting them online, and let scalpers have their way.
All right. Anybody else got anything they want to? Anybody else want to take a swing at this dead horse before we kill it?
No. I think there's only thing left is the mane and a tail.
Yeah, it's a bloody pulp with hair now at this point. We've just kind of, and it's just because we're not going to pick sides. None of us really want to pick sides. We all want to play on everything, and we're never going to call one better than the other because they have their benefits and they have their downsides.
Agreed.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, we hope you all enjoyed this non-PC versus console discussion, as we don't have a preference. And we hope to catch you guys in the next episode.